Big Play Cleveland show. I'm Gabriella Cruz alongside Chris McNeil, Nick Padone. Long sports weekend for us Cleveland fans. We'll get into it. As our friends say on 92.3 The Fan, it is a therapy Monday and such.
Yeah, for a myriad of reasons, right? Obviously, the Guardians gave us a ton of fun all season long, and it was just disappointing to see it come to an end that way. I think all of us wanted to see it continue just because the Browns don't give us much to cheer about. And lo and behold, did the other shoe drop on Sunday with another loss, this time against the AFC North opponent in the Cincinnati Bengals. And Chris, there were a lot of things that happened in that game. It really had everything. Yeah, it is a therapy Monday in every definition of the word.
Yeah, that was a very Browns game right there. From the very beginning all the way through, we see Watson go down, obviously changing this franchise once again. And I'll tell you, we were talking before the show, one of the things that hasn't gotten much run today, but I noticed and all the fans noticed there at the beginning, you always have that guitar smash, right? It's our tradition now in Cleveland. They bring out somebody to smash the guitar, right? We've had Bernie Kosar. We've had Boobie Gibson. We've had Browns players. We've had Cavs players. We have players from the entertainment industry, usually with connections to Cleveland. Now, with the Rock Hall, they just did some inductions over the weekend. So congrats to all those bands, including the Dave Matthews Band. But as part of that, they brought up Flava Flav. Flava Flav had a bit of a problem when he was smashing the guitar, in that the guitar would not smash. He went up there with that thing, and I think they've got it pre-cut. They've got to have that thing pre-cut. He smashed it a good 3 times, did not even put a dent in the dang thing.
Whoa.
Everybody in the crowd starts to laugh. There was just this muzzled laugh from the crowd. Does it a couple of more times, still nothing on the guitar. Finally, it probably took him 8 to 10 times of hitting this dang guitar before it finally smashed. This is supposed to be a guitar smash. First time, smash. Smoke goes up. It took him that long. And then, of course, I think that's a bad omen. Very first opening kickoff, what did they do? The Bengals returned it for a touchdown. Very Browns beginning to that game. You just saw it. I mean, foreshadowing there with Flava Flav not able to smash the guitar, Nick.
Life is just sucked out of this sports town right now. And can we please get to Wednesday so we could have some Cavs basketball?
Right?
Just a little glimmer of hope in our Cleveland Cavaliers, because you said it, Chris. That game truly had everything, and it started from the beginning with the guitar smash, the 100-yard kick return for a touchdown, even after Deshaun Watson got hurt. And can we just say, he looked good. That was his first drive where he looked competent. He was ripping the football downfield like we were all asking for, 10-plus yards at a time. He was escaping the pocket. It finally felt like he had a little bit of a presence in there, and then the Achilles gives out. And then even on that drive, DTR is able to salvage it. Nick Chubb scores a touchdown. It gets called back. Nick Chubb scores a touchdown again. And then you miss the extra point. So that game really did have everything, and this season really is starting to just stink in every single direction of same old Browns. It just feels that way. It feels pre-2018. It really does.
And we forgot to address the elephant in the room, too, about the fans' reactions to a couple things throughout the game. McNeil, I know you had tweeted the contrast between Nick Chubb's entrance and Deshaun Watson's, and then just how it unfolded with Watson exiting the game.
Yeah, the intros, as expected, and we talked about this last week, and everybody was building up to it on social media. Once we heard Nick Chubb was coming back, you figured the Browns were going to announce the offense. They did. They announced Deshaun Watson. The whole place erupted in boos. You bring out Nick Chubb right after that, and of course the place erupted in just a celebratory tone about Nick Chubb being back on the field after so long. So it's good to get him back. It was good to see that reaction from the fans. And then, of course, we had the Achilles injury there. And as soon as Deshaun went down, and I was in the crowd for this, as soon as Deshaun went down, I think people thought that he had just made a mistake and stumbled. They didn't know that he was injured. So there was that immediate boo, and that was a lot of people thinking, Browns doing Browns things there on offense, Nick. He's stumbling, he fell down, what is going on? And then there was the realization when he was down that he was hurt, and there were some people who certainly cheered at that point. But then that was pretty muted. Because pretty quickly after that, after people realized that the cart was going to be coming out, you've got that normal kind of golf clap as he was going off the field. They loaded him onto the cart. Everybody gave him those claps. As he went through the tunnel, they announced DTR. Then the place erupted again. So The fans, when you put it into context, you kind of understand what the fans were going through. We didn't have the benefit of getting the instant replay to see his Achilles go and explode there. So we thought initially he had just fallen down as fans. So I think that reaction was more visceral than what people are giving it credit for.
And
That
too,
makes sense.
like with the whole thing with cheering for injury or booing him because he got injured, like I really do think that's just become a talking point for this week because people want to avoid the inevitable and people want to avoid talking about the fact that this football team has to find a way now and go out there and play. Chris, we got to do this 10 more times this season. It's just there's not a whole lot to talk about. And it really does seem like now the fans and the players hate each other. I mean, how many players did we hear after the game say shame on the fans? And like you said, Chris, it was not everybody. It was a select few. And for the couple people that did cheer, did boo, whatever, man. I don't want to get into this because Cleveland Browns Stadium.
Let's not forget the fans are the customers.
And Chris,
here.
even besides that,
This
like,
is not unique to the Browns either. This is sports, and this is the NFL on this stage.
and Cleveland Browns Stadium, if I'm looking for a moral higher ground, is very low on one of the places that I would go to find that. Those people are out there slugging beers in the Muni lot at 7 in the morning. They could barely see what's happening on the field with straight vision. And not
God bless them all. by the
These
way.
are the same people that are causing, fist fights in the stand. I saw my first fist fight at the age of 6 years old at a Cleveland Browns game. So when I'm looking for people
Brings a
to
tear to
look
my
up
eye.
to, I'm not exactly looking towards the people that are in the stands at Cleveland Browns Stadium. And both things can be true. It is wrong to kick a man when he's down. I think that's fair. I think it's also fair to look at Myles Garrett, to look at some of those guys that called out the fans and be like, really? These fans have felt awkward about this Deshaun Watson thing since the day that it started. I really look at ownership. I really look at leadership that brought Deshaun Watson here and hope they understand that the fans cheering, the fans booing, the entire last 24 hours separated from that injury should be a sign. Let's just say goodbye to this entire thing. Let's just look ourselves in the mirror
Close the chapter.
and realize that it did not work as bad as they wanted it to work. Because, guys, trust me, I know for a fact the Cleveland Browns wanted this to work. Deshaun Watson worked his ass off to get back from that broken shoulder. He wanted it to work. It just isn't working. Please, let's wash our hands from this because Achilles injuries now aren't what they were 5 years ago. Deshaun Watson could be back and ready for opening day next year. We saw it last year with Aaron Rodgers. We saw it last year with Kirk Cousins. We've seen it in basketball with Kevin Durant. Modern medicine, you could get that surgery back and you could be ready to go to start week 1 next year. If I'm the Cleveland Browns, I'm imploring the Cleveland Browns. It's time to find a path forward. Look at what's happened literally in these last 24 hours since the injury. It's just time to move forward from all
What
of
do you
this.
think brings the fan base and this team together now? What's going to be the glue?
Winning would. Boy, if we can just rally around one of these quarterbacks, whether it's DTR, whether it's Jameis Winston, winning solves all ills. Let me tell you that. And it will heal a lot of the wounds that we have in this organization right now. And I'll say this, one thing about the players calling out the fans, I don't have a problem with that, as a lot of people do, because this is their guy. This is the guy that they go to war with every single day. They see him in the locker room. So if you're going to call out the fans a little bit, I'm okay with that on that level. Now, organizationally, as you were saying, the Jimmy Haslams of the world, the Andrew Berrys, the front office, they're accountable for what happened yesterday. They're the ones that brought in Deshaun Watson. They're the ones that created this type of an environment and never really set him up or us up for success once he was here. So this is the type of environment you get when you do that.
It's what they signed up for. We all said it when the trade happened, that whatever was going to happen, whether it was success or failure, they signed up for it. And now they got to lay in this bed of figuring out how do you push this thing forward.
To Nick's point, there's a right for, listen, the fans are going to do what they do. And to your point, McNeil, I think the players have a right to be able to share how they feel about the energy that exists in the stadium. I guess my question for you, too, before we head to our first break is, do you think that this reaction would be different had Deshaun maybe handled some things from a press conference standpoint with the media differently throughout?
He never connected. He never connected with the people, I think the fans of Cleveland. He didn't seem to have, that good back and forth with the media, which isn't necessary, right? But it certainly helps, especially when you come in with the baggage that Deshaun Watson had. And when you couple that then with playing very poorly on the field, you're setting yourself up for all kinds of problems. And that's what we saw happen here. Now, had he have been a guy who was a little bit more engaging with those folks, that would have helped him. But ultimately, you want to see a guy go on the field, be successful. He was not performing. The fans were not happy about
One of the things I thought was interesting is I just spontaneously was chatting with a fan at Barrio in Lakewood a couple weeks back, and he's been a season ticket holder. He's a young kid, too. And he had mentioned, and I didn't think of it from this standpoint, he was like, I just feel like he never really got integrated with the city like we have seen with Baker Mayfield and even Flacco. And so there was, to your point, a bit of a disconnect. And it does beg the question, had he been a little more connected with the city or even carried himself a little differently in the press conferences, maybe could have been some different energy right now. But no matter what we do, I like how you use the word awkward, Nick. I think from the jump, this was always going to be awkward. And so it's awkward now. And now we just got to win.
Now we got to find a path forward. And how serious they are about winning, we will find out. I know Ryan is desperate for us to take a break. More of the Big Play Cleveland show right after this. Welcome on back to the Big Play Cleveland show. We welcome in a very special guest. Joining us now is Medical Director for Affinity Whole Health, Dr. Michael Kohler. Doc, thanks so much for joining us on the Big Play Cleveland show.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
For sure. Hey, I know you guys are doing great things to help people feel better. And my man, Chris McNeil, has been on a program for you guys, and he can't stop talking about the energy. He can't stop talking about the lifestyle improvements after being on Affinity Whole Health now. Chris, for how long has it been? About 2 months?
Yeah, about 2 months. I went for my assessment back in August with you guys. And since that time, I've been on a regimen. They found that I had low T back then, and I've been on a hormone replacement therapy here with you guys to get my T up. And I wanted to talk to you a little bit about what I'm on and what people might be expecting from a program with Affinity Whole Health.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm glad we're here doing this. And it's good to hear from you, Chris. I'm glad you're doing really well.
For sure. Doctor, what goes into a program like Chris when people, I guess, start the journey at Affinity Whole Health and sign up with our free consultation? What should they expect at that point?
Sure. So first, we do a comprehensive set of blood work on every patient. After that, we actually have every patient get set up to meet with one of our providers, whether it's me or one of our physician assistants or nurse practitioners. We go over the entire set of blood work that you have, and we go over what medications we can prescribe to really help you feel much better, like Chris does.
Yeah, and what are your patients, what's been their experience with a program like Affinity? I know for me, I've had better energy, more energy. I used to have to basically take naps during the day. I don't have to do that anymore, which is great as a guy who's 45 years old, being able to kind of roll through my day. I have two different jobs. I've got kids, just like a lot of people out there with responsibility. Is that common amongst people who have tried Affinity in the past?
Absolutely. And, pretty much one of the hallmark symptoms of testosterone deficiency, which you had, is really, low energy levels and fatigue. People also complain of kind of, depressed mood, lack of motivation, sexual side effects. So guys and women will have decreased libido. Guys can have erectile dysfunction from that. And of course, there's you're going to the gym and you're trying to do everything you do to stay healthy, and you just don't get the results you want. But by far, I think the energy levels are probably the number one reason why people come to us, and our patients have great results like you do.
Yeah, and it's been exciting. I'll tell you, I've been able to exercise more. I was telling the guys, even after these hard losses we've had with the Cleveland Browns, and this weekend was particularly brutal because I went to both the Guardians game and the Browns game. So a hallmark of me having low energy would be watching both of those things. But in this case, I had plenty of energy to go out to drive all the way up here for the games, then drive all the way home, and then exercise when I got home. So I really credit a lot of that to Affinity Whole Health. Health. For me, you guys have got me on a regimen right now. Talk about the different regimens that you do prescribe for people who have come in for the assessment and what they can expect to get better through your program.
Sure, it's a great question. And really, every person is different, right? And so that's why the comprehensive set of blood work, including hormone labs and everything that we check on our patients, is so important. Not every person responds the same to the same dose. I mean, it's really individualized therapy. The dose of testosterone that you're on and the other medications that you're on might be completely different than the next guy, And so that's why I think one of the important things we do is that we follow up very frequently with our patients, as you've noticed. We're actually going to have you come back next month just to get another set of blood work to see where your hormones are. Obviously, you're feeling great. So subjectively, that's one of our goals, right? We want to make you feel great, have that energy, et cetera, that you came to us for. But we also want to make sure that all your blood work looks okay too. And so we'll have you come back next month to look at that and see if we need to change any of your medications or your dosages at that time.
Yeah, and I'm excited to come back. I've already got it scheduled for November. So I expect that my levels have gotten better and that I'm probably more healthy than what I was before, certainly from the way I feel. And it'll be interesting to see once we get the labs back how much progress I have made on your program.
Definitely. And sometimes we get it right in the first initial visit. And so the dosages that you're on, they're going to be perfect for you. If we need to change anything though, that's why that follow-up blood work is so important.
Dr. Michael Kohler, medical director for Affinity Whole Health. We appreciate him popping on with us at the Big Play Cleveland show. Doc, just tell people how important it is to schedule that first free consultation, because you got to get your foot in the door. You got to understand and have the meeting with your guys' entire great medical staff that you have there to get this process started.
I think it's very important if you're having any of these symptoms we're discussing, such as fatigue, low energy levels, not making it through the day. I think it's really important just to come in and get your blood work drawn, because you never know, and you might not need hormone therapy. But if you do need hormone therapy, it might make a huge difference in your quality of life, like Chris has already experienced.
Huge thanks to Dr. Michael Kohler for hopping on with us. Make sure to sign up for that free consultation at Affinity Whole Health. Follow us on social media at the Big Play Cleveland Show, specifically on Twitter. We put that link out there all the time for you guys to get a free appointment with us. Chris, it's been awesome to see, really, for me, just the difference in your lifestyle. Much more active Chris McNeil, blowing up my phone at all hours of the day. It's been awesome to see.
Yeah, and thanks to Affinity Whole Health. I appreciate everything, Doctor. I look forward to the follow-up visit and to continued success on my part and for you and Affinity.
Thank you so much for having me on again, and we'll see you next month, Chris. I'm glad you're doing so well.
Sounds good.
Welcome back to the Big Play Cleveland show. It's time for a little bit of our fill-in-the-blank game, brought to you by Affinity Whole Health. Again, thanks to Dr. Kohler coming on the show. It's really cool to hear some of this science aspect. I didn't really know a ton about the testosterone aspect, Chris, but so I didn't really chime in there. But I'm really glad you're reaping the benefits, and it does seem like you're going to beat me no problem in an arm wrestle.
It's been great for me, and it can be great for you, too. Check them out at affinitywholehealth.com.
Okay, guys, who do you think should be the Browns quarterback versus the Ravens next week? Blank should be the quarterback.
I'd like to see Jameis Winston in there, to be honest with you. I think the organization wants to press for DTR to be the guy, but I'd love to see what Jameis can do right now. I think DTR probably needs a little bit more seasoning, a little bit more practice, and Jameis would be fun right now, and I think he would give us a lot of fun sound bites, and so I'm always pulling for those. So my money is on Jameis Winston.
So here's the thing with this, guys, right? Jameis Winston gives the Cleveland Browns the best chance to win football games on Sunday. That was probably the case ever since the ink dried on his contract. Ever since the bus arrived at the Greenbrier, Jameis Winston probably gives the Browns the best chance to win on Sundays. Sitting here today with a 1-6 record, I pose the question to you. Do the Cleveland Browns want to win football games on Sunday? Reminder, this is your first year with a first-round pick back. Right. This is a year where you look at the top of that draft, teams that aren't that good, the New England Patriots, they don't need a quarterback. They just drafted Drake May. The Jacksonville Jaguars, they have Trevor Lawrence on a contract that's bigger than Deshaun Watson's. They're not moving on from him. the Cleveland Browns are primed to find their quarterback of the future in this upcoming draft class. And I wonder if Jameis Winston would put them in a position to win too many games. I wonder if that's the reason why we saw him be the third string emergency quarterback on Sunday. And if that's the reason why they went with Dorian Thompson-Robinson on the backup, knowing good and well that regardless of injury, Watson was going to be on a short leash. I think the Browns want to see what they have in the young Dorian Thompson-Robinson. A lot of it will depend on how's that finger injury. It was his middle finger. I'm told the initial x-rays on that finger injury were negative for DTR. Now they're going to wait the MRI. It'll all boil down to, can he actually grip the football and throw it efficiently, to be seen later throughout the week. But now the Browns have a little bit of a debacle on their hands. Do they want to try to salvage this season? Do they want to try to salvage the culture and roll with Jameis Winston? Or do you want to see what you have in Dorian Thompson-Robinson and look towards that NFL draft?
Interesting take. Hanford had mentioned earlier that it might have just been an isolated circumstantial issue. Who knows if this is true, because I didn't see him, but he said maybe Jameis was at the Guardians game pretty late the night before, and maybe it was one of those kind of decisions, like maybe DTR was a little more sharp and ready for the moment.
Yeah, and here's another crazy factoid, and we could definitely dispel that. So DTR found out Friday evening that he would be the starting quarterback. So the Browns playing a little bit of mystery with their fans, with the media. We see that all the time, but now they're taking it a step further, and they're even being coy with their players, which might not
keeping
be
the players
best
in the dark.
Interesting.
We saw last time Dorian Thompson-Robinson started on short notice, and that didn't play out.
And that
too
was
well.
also
So
against the Ravens, who we've got this coming week.
he found out late Friday evening, so maybe it'll be another grand reveal on this week's edition of Drama in Berea.
That's super interesting. You know what? Yeah, who knows? No, I don't know a whole lot, and this all is funny. Does it ever really make a whole lot of sense? I don't know. Okay, blank should be the Browns starting quarterback in next year's season opener.
I don't think Watson's going to be ready, although, Nick, you have some information here. I know that Aaron Rodgers had just kind of gone through this, and there are now some new medical techniques that allow a player to get back quicker on an Achilles. I think that Deshaun Watson, the Browns are going to try and get him ready for next season for the first game, if they can, in a program similar to Aaron Rodgers. I don't know if that's going to be possible, but I think if that is the case, he's ready to go. I think he's going to be your game one opener quarterback for next year.
It all depends on the money, right? And it depends on the organization as a whole. What do they want to do? Do they want to make the decision to move on from him now, to say that this was a guy that we made the trade for now at that point, it would be 4 years ago. The suspension held things back. Then he broke his shoulder. Now he ruptured his Achilles. At this point, this is probably just who Deshaun Watson is, guys. He's going to be on the other half of 30 rebounding from this injury. He is an injury-prone quarterback. He's not the same swashbuckling quarterback that we saw with the Houston Texans that could stand in there, that can take hits. But you're right, Chris. There is an opportunity for him to be ready for the season opener next year. Mary Kay Cabot, Cleveland.com, friend of show, she was the first to report this, that Watson will explore the speed bridge procedure. That's the same procedure that Aaron Rodgers and Kirk Cousins underwent this past offseason, where it allows that Achilles recovery time to be cut damn near in half. I mean, it improves recovery time by 25 to 30%. And it all just has to do with once that thing is surgically repaired, it lets you get back on your feet faster. We know Watson he took his rehab for that shoulder break very seriously. I'd imagine that he would really consider this.
You keep saying that.
He took it pretty damn seriously.
Okay.
He, wanted to make sure that he was going to be ready to start week 1 this year when there were doubts about that.
The guy I saw on the field didn't look like he necessarily wanted to be there, play in, play out on Sunday. So I was wondering what was happening in that offseason, because he takes a lot of vacations. And, hey, if I could take vacations, I will take vacations. So I am not going to rip the man for taking vacation. But at the same time, the guy was trying to get set for opening day. The guy was not set for this season, I didn't think. Now, that's completely independent of this injury, but he did not look like a guy who was going to lead us anywhere other than to the first pick in the draft right now.
Yeah, and that's where the Browns sit, right? And that's what I would do, and that's what I think is the path of least resistance is look at the Denver Broncos, an AFC team that this organization has a lot of history with. They made a similar mistake with Russell Wilson, and Russell Wilson, by the way, looked okay with the Pittsburgh Steelers, but they made a mistake. And they, Bobby Bonilla the contract. They drafted a rookie in the first round in Bo Nix. They kept Sean Payton, who was their established coach that they felt was best suited to lead that franchise forward. And they're finding ways to at least field a franchise. That's what the Browns are going to have to figure out now is do you want to roll with Deshaun Watson? And really, they should probably communicate that to everyone sooner rather than later in what direction we're really heading with this thing.
And regardless about the speed bridge recovery, modern medicine can heal us physically, and that's great. But how do you come back emotionally from an athlete standpoint when you've just been booed in your entrance on the field and cheered on your exit from the field? Tim Couch was someone who was very open about the fact that getting cheered when he was carted off however many years ago for his injury, that it emotionally did destroy him. So we forget sometimes that they aren't just athletes, they're human beings. And while modern medicine is great, this is tough to glue yourself back together from and come out and be the guy for us. So it'll be interesting to see what happens moving forward. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back with more Fill in the Blank right after this. Welcome back to the Big Play Cleveland Show. We're continuing on with our fill in the blank. A little bit of a lighter note here for us Clevelanders. We got Cavs basketball coming upon us here. My bold prediction for this Cavs season is?
So the last 3 seasons, we've had 44 wins, 51 wins, 48 wins. This year, I'm going to go with 50 wins for the Cleveland Cavaliers. And I think this is a team, barring injury, and the injury bug is always something that we have to deal with here in Cleveland with the Cavaliers. Barring the injury bug really jumping up and getting us, I think we can compete for the Eastern Conference Finals. I think we can be in that game. We can make it to that game. Now, getting past the Celtics, I think would be very difficult, but I could see us playing for the Eastern Conference this year.
Yeah, I really think that this is the year for the Cavs. I mean, they are the only team outside of the Los Angeles Lakers that didn't add a player via free agency. So this is a team that should gel and should click from day one. Remember, that's not the same conversation that we were having this time last year as they added 2 major shooters in Max Strus and George Niang. Now, as we know, Max Strus is already going to miss time to start this season, and you hate to see that because it feels like whenever that happens, especially in the NBA, where conditioning is so pivotal, Max Strus is already starting this season again behind the 8 ball, which is not great. But outside of that, this Cavs team is going to have chemistry. I love what I've seen in the preseason, and obviously you got to take some of that with a grain of salt. But the way that Kenny Atkinson is going to try to make Evan Mobley a feature piece in this offense with the two guards in Darius Garland and Evan Mobley, Darius Garland and let's try that a third time. Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell, I think, is going to be great for Mobley's development moving forward.
Yeah, and I like Kenny Atkinson. Everything that I've seen here early, he's one of those guys that gets involved in practices, likes to run the plays with the guys, seems to be a guy who's not also scared to call out players on the floor and tell them if they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing and really put the onus on them. So I like that mix. I think he's going to bring that kind of accountability to the team while at the same time being in there with the players. So I like that approach. I think the Cavs are set up well this season.
And it's an improved Eastern Conference. They needed that. They needed Kenny Atkinson to come in here. When you look at some of the moves that I think the Cavs knew were going to be made this offseason from some of their rivals, they knew the Knicks were going to do something. I don't know that they knew that something was going to be getting a starting small forward in Bridges from the Nets and then pulling off a blockbuster for Karl Anthony Towns. They knew the East was going to improve, and they knew that they were going to be behind the 8 ball if they just kept things status quo. I love the addition of Kenny Atkinson. I think the Cavs are going to be really good this year.
Okay, blank is the Cavs player I'm most excited about seeing play this year.
Well, you already touched on it, Mobley. I want to see what Evan Mobley can do this season. With Kenny Atkinson coming in, one of his first charges is going to be figuring out what they've got in Evan Mobley. We've seen some improvement over the course of the last couple of years, but really a lot of fans, and myself included, have been looking for this guy to really take the next step. He didn't do that last season. this season may be the season for that to happen, and that's the player I'm going to be watching for.
Yeah, and Mobley's the obvious one. I'll throw you guys another one, and that's Darius Garland. It felt like Garland's last season for the Cavs was really injury prone. It felt like he was never on the floor. That's not the case. He played 57 games. It's just that injury that he did sustain, specifically the one to his face where the jaw had to be wired shut. Do you guys remember that?
Yeah.
That really set Garland back.
Eating through a tube for a while, and he had to get the strength back up. Yeah, I mean, that was a rough injury.
Yeah, I mean, he lost a ton of weight in an NBA season and then tried to come back from that and contribute and help the team. And I think we've seen DG play at an all-star caliber level. I mean, he's been an NBA all-star throughout his career. I think we could see him grow with Donovan Mitchell, with Kenny Atkinson, with featuring Evan Mobley more offensively into one of the premier true point guards in the NBA. So I would look out, too, for Darius Garland. Not really a comeback season or a bounce-back season, but just to get back to the guy that was an all-star not too long ago. We understand that this is Donovan Mitchell's team. Evan Mobley's now going to have an increased role, but I think for Garland, just getting healthy, getting back to your normal playing weight is going to do massive things for the trajectory of this Cavs team. All
right, let's pivot here a little bit to baseball. Guardians, keep in mind in this 2024 season, first-year manager, first-time manager to earn a postseason win in franchise history. We sent 5 players to the All-Star game. 3 of those were first-timers. We also had the best relief corps in Major League Baseball, the best we've seen in 10 years, actually. 2.57 ERA for those guys. We had no Shane Bieber to start this season. We didn't have Tristan McKenzie be himself. And this team crushed it. We advanced the ALCS for the first time in 8 seasons. I will not listen to these comments about this team being a terrible team. This was a fun season. One word I'd use to describe this Guardians season is.
Well, you hit on it. Fun. I had fun this entire season. For those of you who kind of jumped on board for the playoffs, hey, you got to see in a microcosm what this team was like. They were a fun team throughout the season. We came in when we were talking to Jensen back in spring training. We were asking him, hey, how are we even going to produce runs? Is this team going to be competitive in the division, let alone being the second best record in the AL and consistently up there all year long? Every time we went through a spell of losing a few games, we would rebound throughout the season. You'd see different guys stepping up. You had fun players. You know, you had the veteran like Austin Hedges, who we had in studio here. You had Jokenzie Noel. Big Christmas emerged this season. You had Lane Thomas, who we brought on at the trade deadline, was doing nothing for the team for a while. All of a sudden shows up huge in the playoffs. I mean, you had storylines just all over the place with this team. And like you said, you were missing your top-end talent in the starting rotation. You're missing Bieber. You're missing McKenzie. You were really a patchwork for most of this season, and somehow a rookie manager was able to pull all that together into having the second best record in the AL. That's pretty amazing.
And it just speaks to the culture that the Guardians have created, and you hope that our friends at the Browns could figure that out some way, because really the team overachieved. That would be my one word, is they overachieved. You look at this World Series now that's set between the Yankees and the Dodgers. You're going to have nothing but star power. Shohei Ohtani, Freddie Freeman, Aaron Judge, Giancarlo Stanton, Juan Soto. We were putting this together with some minor league guys. I mean, Big Christmas was in the minors not too long ago. Kyle Manzardo
going between Columbus and Cleveland for all these players just to keep them stocked so they'd have a lineup.
The Cleveland Guardians made it all the way to the American League Championship Series with a bunch of feel-good guys. They overachieved all season long, and it really just speaks to the impeccable culture that they have from the top down throughout the organization. I couldn't be more proud of that team.
One word I would use is resilient. This team had 43 come from behind wins this season. That is the most in the American League, and especially from an inexperienced team. This was the youngest team in baseball as well. And the other thing being that we had the most home wins in the American League. So, you know, I just think the culture is totally different, and their resilience is something else. How many times did we see David Fry, all these people step up in the clutch when we needed it most? Lane Thomas. It was great. With that said, the Guardians' top priority this offseason should be
re-signing Shane Bieber. I would really like to see him solidify that starting staff. We talked about how good the bullpen is. We talked about how we were figuring it out offensively. We do need some work on the offensive end, but I think you would really help by getting a stalwart in there, getting him locked up, get Shane Bieber done.
Don't be complacent this offseason. The fans did their part. That ballpark was packed all year long. You have no excuses. Spend a little bit of money, get Shane Bieber back, find a right fielder, and these Cleveland Guardians are going to be A-OK in the future, my guys.
All right, we're going to take a quick break before we've got Jensen bringing the heat. Thanks for watching the Big Play Cleveland show. We'll be back right after this.
Welcome on back into the Big Play Cleveland show. It's time to talk some Guardians in our Bringing the Heat segment with Jensen Lewis, brought to you by our friends over at Northeast Factory Direct. And guys, the Browns game on Sunday was a tough one. You had the Deshaun Watson injury. You had the social media streets being so upset. I wanted to be so mad about the Cleveland Guardians, but I just couldn't find myself to be that mad. I look over at my couch, my girlfriend and my dog are just all snuggled up in a blanket, and I'm like, man, Northeast Factory Direct, this wouldn't have been possible without them. I would have been mad at the Browns yesterday if it wasn't for Northeast Factory Direct, and guys, you could do the same. You could watch 10 more Sundays of Browns football on a brand new sofa. They got so much more than that, though. Kitchen cabinets, bedroom sets, dining room tables, hot tubs, sofas, so much more. You could shop online anytime by going to northeastfactorydirect.com. But trust me when I say you got to check them out in store. It's a truly unique furniture buying experience in Cleveland, Euclid, Macedonia, or North Canton. And if you're looking for an even better deal, check out their outlet centers in Euclid or Canton. Make sure to ask about that big play bonus for an extra special hookup. We bring in Jensen Lewis for our Bringing the Heat segment. And Jensen, the one thing that keeps getting brought up on this show, were you surprised that the Cleveland Guardians decided to keep pitching to Giancarlo Stanton in that American League Championship Series?
A tough one to swallow, right, Nick? And really it's the big three of Soto and Judge and Stanton and Aaron Boone having the wherewithal to say, all right, I'm just going to put Stanton up behind Judge. And, even though he's going to win the MVP of the regular season, Aaron Judge will, you can make an argument that Giancarlo Stanton is as large an MVP and winning not only the ALCS one, but for the entirety of the Yankee postseason. He's basically put the offense on their back and will be counted upon yet again in this World Series against the Dodgers. But yeah, a couple of crippling blows, not only from Stanton. We know the 3-run home run from Soto late in Game 5. Overall, fellas, I mean, those three guys are as big a responsibility for the Yankees getting the Fall Classic as any.
One of the biggest surprises of this postseason for me was Class A. What is going on with him? What happened there? Was he tipping pitches? And is it anything that may hold over till next season?
Yeah, Chris, for the one time all year that Class A found some trouble spots, it was the worst time, right, in the postseason. And for a remarkable individual campaign throughout the regular year, that's going to be one of the best statistically by a reliever, not only in the American League, but overall in Major League history. I think I would center on the final outing and getting those 3 outs. I had put it out on social media. I thought they were the 3 biggest outs of his career because it wasn't just what transpired the previous couple of games. It was more so for now the player. Are you able to get up off the mat and meet the moment? Because if he failed for a third straight time, and that was the final game that he got into all year, yeah, I could say that there'd be some residue and it would hold over and you'd have an entire off season to think about what went wrong in 72 hours time. But for him throughout this off season, there will definitely be an edge. And with all the success of the regular season, most people will remember that. They'll remember what happened in the postseason. And that is the thing that I think will stick with him, of not wanting that to occur. And what we hope is another long run for the Guardians in October in 2025.
Jensen, when you look at bright spots throughout the entire American League Championship Series, it's got to be Brian Rocchio is a big piece of what the Guards were able to do throughout this entire postseason. Is he a guy that you expect to take a step forward as we look to what the Guardians will look like in 2025?
Yeah, Nick, remember in spring training, there was a host of candidates to try and win the starting shortstop job. And a lot of us were looking at Tyler Freeman and Gabriel Arias and Rocchio. And would one of those guys have a good enough spring training to just take the role and run with it? It took him some time, I think, to overall settle on Brian Rocchio. We knew defensively that he would be the guy that would be the best of the three. It was really the hit tool, and how quickly could he develop? How quickly could he overcome the eventual adversity that every young hitter faces? And I think what he did down the stretch, and I'm sure the tutelage of Andres Jimenez helped in a major way of getting him through the tough spots and realizing that he belonged at this level. But for him individually to have the results down the stretch in September and what is statistically a great postseason for a guy his first time around, between him and Stephen Kwan, they kept the line moving. They kept presenting opportunities for runners to be driven in. And he's as big a reason as any that they got that far into October.
Jensen, I didn't anticipate myself being as triggered over this as I did get, but something really bothered me about seeing X comments about Stephen Vogt over managing. Sure, there's a case you could always make anytime you lose, that the manager could have made this decision or that decision. I thought he made so many stunning decisions, though, throughout the series, especially as a first-year manager in uncharted territory, that I kind of was bothered by it because I think there were too many things he did right, and the reality is you can't leave guys on base, and you can't throw wild pitches, and you got to make routine defensive plays. Just my thoughts. What are yours?
It's well said. And Gab, I give Stephen Vogt credit for sticking to his guns and being the guy that he was from day one. It's what got them there. And ultimately, when you look at the makeup and the usage just in that championship series alone, there really wasn't another avenue for him to turn to. He had to go with his gut feeling and what the numbers presented for him. A couple of times where you have to stop potential big innings from happening, and that meant taking Tanner Bybee out after 4 outs in game 2. I'm sure not the way that he had it drawn up, but in that moment, you do the very best that you can. And you had to go to the guys that were as critical to them winning the division and getting into that spot as any. So, yeah, it comes down to the players being able to execute too. And I'm glad that you brought that to the forefront because, hey, the manager can only do so much. He can only give the opportunities to those players. It's incumbent then upon the players to come through in those situations. And there were a handful in which they didn't. And that's no fault of the manager. That's, hey, you pay certain middle of the order bats to be able to get hits with runners in scoring position. That didn't transpire. You are asking a relief corps to be nearly perfect against a Yankee lineup that had base runners in over half the innings they played. I mean, that you are asking that group to climb Everest without an oxygen tank. Like it's nearly impossible. And the fact that we were in it as long as we were and as close as we were is a credit to that whole group for holding the line and giving this team an opportunity to come back in those 3 games.
Straight ahead, we ask Jensen Lewis the direct question of the week presented by Northeast Factory Direct. Don't go anywhere. More of the Big Play Cleveland show right after this.
Welcome back to the Big Play Cleveland show. We are joined by Jensen Lewis, continuing our Bring in the Heat with Jensen. McNeil, I won't steal your question.
Well, Jensen, as we go into the offseason with this Guardians team, what should be the top priorities of the front office to make this team more competitive than they were this year?
Yeah, honestly, Chris, the rotation will be at the forefront because it probably has the most moving parts, or at least the ones that have the most question marks. And I think we can rely that Tanner Bybee, Gavin Williams will be part of this rotation next year as long as both are healthy. Remember, Gavin starting the year on the IL this year and was limited in his starts that he could have. I think Joey Cantillo will be in contention for a starting spot. What will happen with Tristan McKenzie? What will happen with Logan Allen? I think both of them have to prove not only this offseason, but into spring training of next year, as we sit here today, that they're worthy of those spots. Won't be surprised if Matthew Boyd is asked back. Won't be surprised if Ben Lively is in the conversation to be part of it. And then, really the ultimate one is what happens with Shane Bieber. I would fully anticipate that there will be suitors outside of Cleveland that will look to try and capitalize on a buy low year next season and maybe some incentives or option years after that. But that's a whole different dynamic and one that I think we have to wait to see this free agent market play out.
All right, Jensen, we need a rapid fire prediction for you. Who wins the World Series and in how many games?
I can't pick the Yankees after what happened. I can't do
yeah,
that.
screw that.
I want nothing more than the Dodgers to win in 5 and to do it in Yankee Stadium and give them a taste of their own medicine. What happened for us? That's very selfish of me, but I think they can get it done. I would love to see the Dodgers win it.
All right, we could all pull for that together, I think.
Yeah.
Jensen, huge thanks for popping on with us all year long. It's been a lot of fun. The future is so bright for this club. Thanks so much.
You got it, guys.
Always fun with our guy, Jensen Lewis. He brought so
Absolutely.
much to our show this year, and we just appreciate him for popping on to talk some guards with us all year long, and it was such a fun ride for this team. Alrighty, guys, thank you so much for tuning in to the Big Play Cleveland Show. Download that Big Play app. Watch us on demand anytime, and we'll see you next week.